Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Anna and we have made it to that time of the year again where everyone's either going back to school or all of us homeschooling mamas are getting ourselves prepared for another school year. So for myself, I have a 5-year-old son and then I've got a 1.5-year-old daughter, and my son is actually starting kindergarten this year. And it's interesting that he's finally starting a kindergarten, like an actual curriculum, because his day in and day out is not that much different, even though we have started kindergarten. So I have been homeschooling him since he was around two-ish. And this past year, when he kind of hit that, pre-K prep stage, I really started to get us into a nice routine, and a routine that I knew that I wanted to stick with whenever he actually hit kindergarten. And so it's not a culture shock to him at all. He's already in the groove. He already knows what we're doing at what time. And I think that that has been a blessing. It's been a good thing for us to just run right in and make the transition easy. I remember when my son was actually born, I would think about what I was gonna do. Like, would I send him off to public school? Would I homeschool? And I think I felt so overwhelmed because there is just so much information, so many potential curriculums and things that you can do with your kids. And it's overwhelming. Even like watching videos like this, I know can be really overwhelming. And it's true that it boils down to you having to find what works for you and your kid and your routine and all of that stuff. But I really feel like this past year I nailed it down and I just simplified it and used a lot of inexpensive resources. And I just want to share those with you today in hopes that if you are a mama and your child is not yet started school yet, or you're thinking about maybe pulling your child out in the future in homeschooling, then this video might give you a little bit of confidence. And I know that these videos really did help me too. So I want to keep it really simple. And I just want to trickle through the day with you, like from beginning to kind of end. And you know, morning start, everybody gets up and we have a normal breakfast. And sometimes during breakfast, my son will start on his morning basket. If he doesn't want to start on it, that's totally fine. So for me, a morning basket, and some of you may be like, yeah, I've heard of morning baskets. And some of you are like, I have no clue what that is. And essentially it is a small basket or a little tub or whatever you have with some items in it that you are going to have your child work on. And those can be independent things, or it can be things that you do together. But for me, I like to look at a morning basket as little bits of knowledge. And so what I do is, a lot of us have a lot of resources at home. I mean, you probably have picked up things over time to teach your child things for their level, or you've been gifted things, or maybe you've been at a thrift store and you found some workbooks, or you've picked up workbooks at like Walmart or something like that for your child to work on. And half of the time we get those and then we just don't really like stick to them. And so I think for the sake of just saving money, if your child has not gone through any of those yet and you haven't been using those resources, then a morning basket, that would be a perfect time to pull those out and pull out a worksheet. Or let's say that you don't have any of those worksheets. Let's say that you don't have anything yet. Do not sleep on places like the Dollar Tree. For my son, I found these are all new workbooks for him, and they're just little like morning starters. They're really just to get him to dip his toes into some writing, some maybe reading, some little like simple math where he's just like counting dots and adding things, like nothing crazy, really simple stuff that he can do on his own. So for instance, all of these, like I said, came from the Dollar Tree, and they're great, like just to get their toes wet for the day. And so my son did this one this morning, and he wrote his name at the top, and then he had some words of the day, and he blew through this in less than maybe 3 to 5 minutes. And so it's just little tiny things, and it doesn't have to be a workbook. It can be absolutely anything that you have. I love to put flashcards in his morning basket. So I'll do one card a week. So it'll be either a sight word or a Spanish card. And we will just go over that same one every single day that week. Or I have states, like I've got little magnetic states. I will pull a state out and we'll look at it and we'll look at the shape of it. And we will keep that state all week long. And maybe we'll turn on YouTube and we'll listen to a song about that state, or we will watch an educational video about this. It could literally be anything. Just look at it like bits of knowledge, just little bits of knowledge, things that your child finds fun, or just resources that you have that you can make like a little game out of, and spend like, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes just like getting them in some sort of groove. And don't overwhelm them. Like they're supposed to be like quick little bursts. Like it's not supposed to be like the actual lesson of the day. And then another one that I have, I love this one. He loves doing this one, and this is just to get him writing for the day. And it's just a bunch of Bible verses, and these you actually trace. So he writes his Bible verse, and he's just tracing those letters, and it's just improving his handwriting and his motor skills. Something I also find to work the best when it comes to morning baskets is to just hang on to whatever you have in that basket until you start to notice a disinterest. And then that's when you want to go back into your resources, swap things out, and you would be amazed at how just like a little refresh can get your kids excited about learning in the morning again. And then as far as morning baskets go for my 1.5-year-old, I've got these little learning flashcards. I think we all have flashcards. Like I said, we're gifted these things all the time when we have kids. And so I will pull her out a flashcard of the week, and we go over this word. So taco, we've got taco, and we go over this word, and she gets to look at it and hold it, and she carries it around all day, and we do one word, one card a week. And right now we're also doing just colors. And so I don't have anything fancy here. She's just learning her colors. So I have a duck that's red, and I've got a little block here that's purple, and we just go through them, and she repeats them after me. She's starting to learn how to talk right now, and that's really it for her. I mean, I think we get nervous and we overcomplicate things a lot of the time. So after the morning baskets are wrapped up, we've probably spent 10, 15, 20 minutes max. I mean, 20 minutes would actually be really long for us. Doing those things. After that's over, we take a little break, and that's when I get all of my like little chores done for the day. I get the beds made and get the dishes cleaned up, and I usually get my kids some sort of activity together. Whether I try to make it something that they're doing with their hands, whether that be we've got like a water art thing. I'll show you and I'll insert it. And we have, Play-Doh, or we'll build, like this morning, we built a ramp for their cars out of some bubble mailer that had come in the mail the other day. And so I usually just try to get them occupied with something like that, something artsy. Sometimes I'll print out a coloring page for my daughter because she really loves to color right now. So I just try to do something like that while I get the house kind of wrapped up and in order. So after I get the house all tidied up, I like to break everybody again for a quick story. Now, I sometimes do fun stories. I'll pull something out of their book bin or whatever, but most of the time they're kind of over those. And I actually prefer them to be something educational. I feel like my son learns so much during story time. And so what I do is I go to the library and I will find things that are age appropriate, that are also educational. And so, for instance, this week we've got, and this is, I have a boy, so he thinks that this stuff is so cool. It's Why Feet Smell and Other Gross Factors About Your Body. And so he's going to think this is really funny. And he's also going to learn about probably bacteria and all kinds of things like that. I've got this one, Where Does Water Go? So we're going to be learning about the sewage system, Amazing Eyes Up Close. And so Pluto, just educational books that kind of keep them interested. Another cool thing that I just discovered about our library is that you can get on their website and you can reserve books. And so we are unfortunately down to one vehicle right now. And so my husband is usually taking that to work. And so I'm not in a position where I can just freely go to the library whenever I want. So I popped on there and I reserved all of these books. And he said that he walked in and they just had them pulled, had them ready for me, and he walked in and he walked out. And so if you want to save time and if you really want to browse their collection, maybe check that out as well. So after story time, that can take anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how much they want to read. If my daughter keeps bringing me books and she really is interested in reading Brown Bear 3 times, I will read that for her that many times because she's learning so much right now. But we really don't spend a lot of time. We do it in nice little chunks. And so after story time, we take another break. They go and play, and I will typically get a workout in, and then we'll make lunch. And then I put my daughter down, and that's when my son and I actually work on his curriculum and his lesson of the day. But I really just wanted to point out that it's good to do it in these little bursts, in these little segments, because it prevents you from getting burnt out. It prevents your kids from getting burnt out because you're not going to be able to keep a 5-year-old's attention span for, an hour and a half or whatever to do everything all in one sitting. And I think that it burns us out too. So it's just nice to kind of break it up. So for our actual curriculum, after a lot of researching, I decided to go with the good and the beautiful. Now, I do want to talk about the good and the beautiful because there is some controversy around the good and the beautiful as far as the creator and owner. Her name is Jenny, is it Phillips, I think? And she is part of the LDS, which is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And as a Christian, that is not a problem for me because I have the gift of discernment and I am okay with using her curriculum. Now, there is not a lot of um, theology in these books, in this curriculum at all. I mean, very, very bare bones. I think the most that I have personally seen up until this point is how God created everything in a very simplistic Christian view, and not a lot of like personal doctrine. And because of that, I'm okay with that. Now, some people are not okay with supporting other people who do not hold their beliefs. I personally do not feel convicted about that. And I also feel like we live in a very corrupt world overall. And if we were going to play that game with one particular brand or whatever, then we would need to be fair and do it with everywhere we shopped and everywhere we went. And it would probably get pretty impossible to live in this world, to be honest. So, personally, for me, I think that this curriculum is beautiful. It's very colorful, and it has been a lot of like little hands on things that has kept my son extremely interested. And I think it's doing a really good job at teaching the foundations of reading and writing and math so far. And there's, like I said, there's just not enough doctrine mixed in for me to be concerned about it teaching my child anything. But the world is going to try to teach our children things that are not correct all the time. And that is why it is our job as parents to step in and explain to them why certain things aren't right. And so in the future, if I were to ever see that, then we can use that as a learning opportunity. But I really don't think that that's going to happen. So for kindergarten, they recommend that you get the language arts, which is the literature for kindergarten, and then the math. And both of them come with some extra stuff like, you know, there's little things that they get to use with their hands. So this morning, my son was getting to use these little cars to drive over hills, and he thought that was so fun. And then there's extra books and things like that that come with it, and it all is just married so beautifully together. And something else that I really love about it is that it's open and go. There is no prep work or very, very little prep work. And so you don't have to sit around at night, you know, prepping what your kid's going to do the next day. You can just forget about it. You can just wait until that time of the day, open it up, kind of read through it, and then you're ready to go. And I absolutely love that about The Good and the Beautiful. Before I close the video, something that I really want to say is, don't assume that your child won't understand something. Our children are so curious and they ask questions all the time. And I remember the other day that my son was asking my husband where, I can't remember, he maybe said something about the sewage system, and he was like, my husband just told him all of the mechanics around it. And so when we pulled out this book earlier this morning to read, we actually read this one this morning. It was Where Does Water Go? And it was about the sewage system. And I asked him, I was like, do you know where the water goes? And because my husband did not dumb it down for him and explain to him that the water goes underground, he already knew that. He already knew that. And then we got to kind of go into like, you know, the plants and how it cleans the water and all of that. But I think a lot of the time, because our children are little, we have a tendency to try to zoom over conversations because we assume that they're not going to understand it. And my husband and I try really hard to explain it to them, even if it sounds complicated, even if they don't understand it. But you would be surprised by how often they truly understand it. And another thing that I want to say about homeschooling is that we can use every opportunity as a learning opportunity. And so there's just so many little things that go on in a day, and we should be taking advantage of it. So, for instance, my we found a little itty bitty tiny grasshopper in our house this morning. We caught the grasshopper and we've been looking at it and examining it. And so I think we didn't have time for it today, but because we caught that little grasshopper, I think for tomorrow I will hop on and try to find like a free PDF of some sort of grasshopper. I don't know if it's going to be, if it'll give us like the names of everything on it as far as like the anatomy, or maybe I can just find one that talks about different types of grasshoppers or something. There's so many free resources online that we can use, and I think that we should definitely be taking advantage of them. I hope that this video wasn't overwhelming to you. I really wanted it to be ultra simplistic. It is ultra simplistic once you get into the groove. And so I hope that this gave you at least some ideas on how to start incorporating homeschooling into your everyday life, especially if you are not quite there yet. If your children are still not in school yet, maybe you can go ahead and get your footing and maybe just feel confident enough to jump into homeschooling whenever they actually start school. I'm really looking forward to making more videos like this in the future to share what works, what doesn't work, how things change, if things change, and just sharing all of that with you, maybe learning about more curriculums in the future whenever, like for instance, if the Good and the Beautiful just stops working at some point, maybe we'll switch into something else. And I hope that I can share that with you all and encourage you all as well. Well, thank you so much for watching if you made it this far, and Lord willing, I will see you all at the next video.